Taking you to Capitol Hill now, multiple outlets are reporting that the House Ethics Committee will meet on Wednesday now to discuss the report about their investigation into Matt Gaetz. They originally scheduled that vote for Friday about whether to release the report, but called it off. Trump plans to nominate the former congressman as his attorney general, and Gaetz is the subject of a long-running probe into claims involving drugs and sexual misconduct. He has denied all allegations. But pressure is building within Congress for the committee to publish its findings. CBS News congressional correspondent Nikole Killion joins us live from the Capitol in the Russell Rotunda. Nikole, presidents have the power to make what are called recess appointments. We've been talking about them a lot. That happens without confirmation when the Senate isn't in session. And sources tell CBS News that Trump's team is considering that route to get through former Congressman Gaetz as attorney general. What would that entail? And how likely is it? What are you hearing from lawmakers?
Yeah, well, what I will say is I think any speculation in terms of the path forward, we should let the process bear out. But certainly, given the debate around recess appointments, I think many senators have been on the record saying that they are open to that possibility, including the new majority leader, John Thune, although he has also acknowledged that the votes may not be there necessarily for that as of yet. And certainly just in talking to a number of senators here on Capitol Hill, the Republican senators more specifically, the preference seems to be to go through that more traditional process. But that being said, if the Senate were to recess for a period of 10 days or longer, then as you mentioned, yes, the president does have that authority to try to push some of his cabinet nominees through. And also that has to have some buy-in from the other chamber, the House. And so we know Speaker Johnson was also asked about the possibility, and he did seem to indicate a willingness that there could be a function for that. There could be a function for recess appointments. So again, it remains a big open question here on Capitol Hill whether or not the president-elect will pull that trigger, for instance, with Matt Gaetz or other individuals. What we do know is that it is not unique in the sense that other presidents have certainly utilized that function, whether we're talking about former President George Bush, Clinton, even former President Obama, although because he tried to make some recess appointments that ultimately were struck down by the Supreme Court, that in essence is where we kind of got to the position where we are today, where there is kind of this agreement to continue those pro forma sessions and for presidents not to use that function if they don't have to.
Well, the White House, Nikole, has sent Congress an extensive emergency funding request after, of course, the series of devastating natural disasters. Can Congress get this done before the end of the year? And also, do they still have a looming decision over government funding to avoid a shutdown in December?
Yeah, well, in terms of that emergency disaster aid, that is certainly the hope. Certainly there is a big drumbeat on the part of the White House and President Biden to get that disaster relief passed. That was expected at some point in time to be part of the continuing resolution that was passed through December 20th. But ultimately, that wasn't part of that deal, which is why the White House is now bringing it up again, saying, look, we have asked multiple times for this funding. The Small Business Administration has exhausted its funds to help people in the recovery, help small businesses during this time. And given Hurricanes Helene and Milton and other severe storms that have impacted other parts of the country, they are urgently pressing Congress to get it done. There does seem to be bipartisan support to do that. I think the big question is whether or not it gets included with an extension of government funding past December 20th, or if it is handled separately, the latter of which seems more likely at this time.
Nikole Killion, thank you.